Hello everyone, welcome to Economy This Week series of Drishti IAS. I'm your educator Disha Bhatt. Let's get started. So these are the news which we are going to cover. These are our topics for discussion. The first news is related to RBI's Monetary Policy Committee recent announcements. The second news is related to MSME Development Bill 2026. Then we will discuss about the Fawara UPI cross-border payment corridor which has taken place between India and Maldives. Then RBI to resume licensing of urban cooperative banks. Let's discuss them one by one. So recently, the Monetary Policy Committee has held its 62nd meeting from 3rd of August to the 5th of August 2026 under the RBI Governor Sanjay Manotra. Now we will look into the key announcements which has been made under this particular committee. But more importantly, we should understand that what is Monetary Policy Committee, because multiple times UPSC has asked a lot of previous year questions. Okay, let me show you. See, this is the question which was asked in 2017. I have attached only one question. So we will solve this later, but let us discuss the concept first. Now, what is Monetary Policy Committee? See, the main responsibility of RBI is to control inflation, is to maintain price stability in the economy. Okay. So how do RBI do that? Through this Monetary Policy Committee. See, now here are some key facts which you have to learn for your exam. See, now if we talk about Monetary Policy Committee, it comes under the section of 45ZB of the amended, that is 2016 RBI Act 1934. So under which section does your Monetary Policy Committee comes in? It comes under your 45ZB of the amended 2016 RBI Act 1934. The central government is empowered to constitute a 6-member Monetary Policy Committee. Since 2016, Monetary Policy Committee has been announcing its decisions. Monetary Policy Committee was made in 2016. That you have to remember for your examination perspective. Under which act? Under section 45ZB of RBI Act 1934. If we talk about how many members are there or a part of Monetary Policy Committee, so in total there are 6 members which are a part of MPC. Okay, so in total there are 6 members. Out of these 6 members, 3 members are from the RBI side and the rest 3 members are from the government side. If we talk about these 3 members which are from the RBI side, okay, one is your governor, one is your deputy governor, and the other one is your RBI officer. Okay, all right. What is the objective of Monetary Policy Committee? Further, section 45ZB lays down that the Monetary Policy Committee shall determine the policy rate required to achieve the inflation target. Okay. We need to maintain the price stability so that our inflation remains within the target range. What is the target range for the inflation? It is decided. Has to be there in between 2 to 6%. This is our targeted range for inflation, and it is the responsibility of RBI to keep the inflation under this particular target. Okay. Now, the decision of Monetary Policy Committee shall be binding on the banks. Whatever decision has been made in Monetary Policy Committee, let's say that they have decided that they will keep the repo rate at 5.25%. So that has to be followed by the banks. That has to be followed by the RBI. If we talk about the composition, the MPC shall consist 6 members. I have told you that there are 6 members who are the part of Monetary Policy Committee. Now, who is the chairperson? RBI Governor is the ex officio chairperson of Monetary Policy Committee. Very important. Deputy Governor in charge of the monetary policy, and officer of the bank to be nominated by the central board. And the rest 3 persons will be from the central government side. One important fact you have to remember is that the 3 members who are from the RBI side, they can be reappointed. But these members who have been appointed by the central government, their tenure is fixed. They can serve in the MPC only for the 4 years. They cannot be reappointed again. Alright. So I hope this is clear. Now let us discuss about the key concepts which are important for your examination perspective. If you will understand them, then only you will be able to understand the key announcements. So the first concept which we have to discuss is repo rate. See, a repo rate is a type of interest rate at which the RBI provides the overnight liquidity to banks against the collateral of government and other approved securities under the liquidity adjustment facility. Understand what it is trying to say. Suppose you need a loan. If we, the general public, if we are in need of money, we will go to banks. Banks will give us the loans. But if banks are in requirement of money, whom they will approach to? They will approach to RBI. If banks are in need of funds, they will approach to RBI. Now RBI will give them the loan. For example, if the bank want 100 rupees, banks are in short of 100 rupees, so banks will approach to RBI. RBI will give 100 rupees to the banks. But in return, RBI will also charge a certain interest from these banks. Okay. Now this interest is called as your repo rate. RBI uses this repo rate to control inflation from the market. Okay. If the RBI feels that there is a lot of money supply in the economy, we need to control the inflation. So what RBI will do? RBI will increase that interest rate. That means it will become the difficult for these banks to borrow money from the RBI, because right now the RBI is charging them the higher interest rate, and banks will pass on this interest rate to the general public. Okay, as a result, for the general public, like for the people like us, it will become difficult to borrow money. And what it will lead to? It will lead to the less consumption. Okay, so whenever the inflation is high, RBI increases the repo rate, and whenever the inflation is less, then RBI reduces the repo rate. Whenever RBI wants that we should support economic growth, RBI reduces the repo rate. All right. Now the next concept is reverse repo rate. Reverse repo rate is exactly opposite of repo rate. Let us read this. The interest rate at which RBI absorbs liquidity on an overnight basis from the banks against the collateral of eligible government securities under the LAF. Okay. Now, under reverse repo rate, what happens is, if the banks have an excess funds, if the banks are having an excess money, they can deposit this money to the RBI. Now, why the banks will deposit this money to the RBI? Because RBI will give them certain interest. Okay, RBI will give them certain interest. Now, it is this interest which is called as your reverse repo rate. So, I hope you are able to get the difference between repo rate and reverse repo rate. Now, let us talk about the marginal standing facility. Okay, now marginal standing facility, see, it is a facility for whom? For the banks. It is a facility under which scheduled commercial banks can borrow additional amount of overnight money from RBI by dipping it into statutory liquidity ratio portfolio up to a limit at a penal rate of interest. First of all, let us understand what is SLR. Okay, statutory liquidity ratio. See, SLR is a type of reserve which banks has to make out of their deposits. For example, if a banks have 100 rupees in total and the RBI has told banks to keep SLR at 18%, that means what? That out of this 100 rupees, 18 rupees should be reserved as your SLR. Okay. I hope you are able to understand the meaning of SLR. Now let us understand what is marginal standing facility. See, it is also a borrowing facility which has been given to banks. That means if banks, in the case of emergency, if they want a loan from RBI, they can use this particular facility. Along with the repo rate also offers the same facility, but MSF, especially in the case if the banks are in need of funds in the urgent basis, then they can avail this facility. Okay, and they have to provide their SLR as a collateral to use this particular facility. And always remember, the rate of MSF is always greater than your repo rate. Always remember this fact. If the repo rate is 5.25%, then MSF will be higher than 5.25%. It is around 5.50. Okay. Why here? Because the RBI is lending you the money on the urgent basis. Okay. All right. Now the next concept is standing deposit facility. As the name suggests, it is a deposit facility. Who will deposit their money? Obviously, the banks will deposit their money with the RBI. The standing deposit facility is a monetary policy tool through which commercial banks can deposit their surplus fund with RBI and earn interest without providing any collateral to the RBI. Okay. For example, if the SBI is having an 100 rupees excess in an excess amount, and SBI do not want to lend that money to the general public, what SBI can do is it can deposit these 100 rupees to the RBI. In return, RBI will provide the interest rate to the SBI bank. Okay. Don't get confused between both of them. Okay. As the name suggests, it is a deposit facility. Deposit facility for whom? It is for the banks. Okay. And it is your marginal standing facility. Standing facility, that means there is a line of banks, they are standing in order to get money from the RBI in the case of emergency. So this is your marginal standing facility and this is your standing deposit facility. What is the main purpose of SDF is, its main purpose is to absorb excess liquidity from the economy. Okay. For example, if the RBI observes that there is excess money supply in the market, there is a lot of money available in the market. So what RBI will try to do is RBI will offer the high SDF interest rate. RBI will tell you, instead of giving you interest rate of 5%, I will give you the interest rate of 8% if you will deposit your money in my account. Okay, so it is used to absorb the excess liquidity. Then the next component is the bank rate. Bank rate is a rate in which RBI is ready to buy or rediscount bills of exchange or other commercial paper. The bank rate is published under section 49 of RBI Act 1934. Remember this information. Bank rate is also, it is similar to a repo rate. Okay, bank rate is a rate in which RBI provides loan to the banks. Okay, but this is not very much relevant. We generally use repo rate in our monetary policy committee meetings. Okay. Now, let us talk about the types of monetary policy stance. Now, what is policy stance? Policy stance tells us that how RBI is going to approach the economy. What stance does the RBI wants to take? Okay, so in general, there are three types of stances: hawkish stance, dovish stance, and neutral stance. Let's talk about hawkish stance. Now, RBI uses hawkish stance when RBI feels that there is an inflation in the market. There is an excess money supply in the market. So in the hawkish stance, what RBI will do is RBI will increase the interest rate. In this case, RBI wants liquidity to be reduced. Okay, so hawkish stance is used when there is an inflation in the economy. Okay, I hope it is clear to you. Now, the next stance is dovish stance, just opposite of hawkish stance. Now, in dovish stance, RBI is focusing more on the supporting of economic growth. So, the stance, it will be a very easy stance, relaxed kind of a stance. Here, what RBI will do is RBI will reduce the interest rate. Why RBI is reducing the interest rate? Because RBI wants to encourage people to spend more. Okay, RBI wants to increase the money supply in the market. That's why we are taking dovish stance. Here, the interest rate will be reduced. Okay. Now, the next stance is neutral stance. Neutral stance means what? That RBI does not strongly commit to tightening or easing. Okay, RBI doesn't want to give a clear indication. They neither want to increase the interest rate, neither they want to decrease the interest rate. They are just in a wait and watch mode. Okay. Future action depends on the inflation and growth data. RBI keeps its option open. Okay, either it can increase the interest rate as well, and either it can reduce its interest rates as well. Okay, it can adopt any approach. So that is your neutral stance. And right now, in this particular Monetary Policy Committee announcement, RBI has kept its neutral stance. Now let us have a look into the changes. See, these are the current rates. If we talk about the repo rate, it is 5.25%. If we talk about the MSF rate, it is 5.50%. I've explained you that MSF rate is always greater than your repo rate because here the banks are getting funds in on an urgent basis. That's why the rates are higher. If we talk about SDF rate, it is around 5%. Bank rate is around 5.50% and the policy stance is neutral. Now let us try to solve the question. Which of the following statements are correct regarding the Monetary Policy Committee? First statement, it decides the RBI benchmark interest rate. Second statement, is a 12-member body including the governor of RBI and is reconstituted every year. It functions under the chairmanship of Union Finance Minister. You have to choose the correct answer. Tell your answers in the comment box. Now the next news is related to MSME Development Bill 2026. Now, Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises Development Act was introduced in Rajya Sabha on 28th July 2026. It seeks to amend the MSMED Act. Now, in this particular bill, what we have done is we have amended this MSMED Act, Micro, Small, Medium Enterprise Development Act 2006. Now, let me remind you that previous year question has been asked from this particular act. I'll tell you, I'll show you in the upcoming slides, but this act is important. So, in this bill, we have amended this particular act. What amendments we have made? We have made amendments related to MSME classification, the process of its registration, the payment settlement, dispute resolution, and penalties. Okay. Now, this is the question. It was asked in 2023. If you want, you can solve this question. I have just attached this slide to show you the importance of this topic. Now, let us discuss about the key provisions of this bill. Now, the first provision is new criteria for the classification of MSME. See, right now, the central government will classify MSMEs on the basis of these two criteria, that is investment in plant and machinery equipment and the annual turnover. Okay. Previously, also, we have classified MSMEs on the basis of investment and annual turnover. But what is the new change we have made here? See, what we have done is we have removed the threshold. The threshold has been removed. Earlier, for example, let's just say if your investment limit is 2.5 crore, then you will be classified as a small medium enterprise. Now this is a investment, this is a threshold we have provided. Now the central government wants to keep it very flexible because the economic conditions they keeps on changing. The market keeps changing, right? So we have removed this threshold. We want to keep it more flexible. Okay. So the MSME classification criteria will remain the same. It will be the first category is investment and the second will be your annual turnover. Now, MSME registration has become voluntary. Under the existing act, filling of a memorandum was mandatory for certain medium manufacturing enterprises. Now, under this bill, what has been proposed is that right now, registration and filling of memorandum will be voluntarily for all the MSME. And in case if you want to register yourself, then you can use a digital platform. The central government and the state government will provide you the digital platform so that paperwork can be reduced. Next provision is mandatory trades settlement of CPSCs. Now this is very important. Okay, here we have to understand two concepts. What is trades and what is CPSC? CPSCs are mainly government companies. Okay, now I will explain this point with the help of example. See, what is happening is, for example, there is one small and medium enterprise. I will name it Company A. Company A is a MSME. Company A is a MSME. Now, Company A has sold 100 shares to this CPSC. Now, CPSC has to pay 10 lakh rupees. CPSC has to make 10 lakh rupees to this particular MSME. But CPSC is not making payment right now. CPSC is saying that I will pay you after 60 days. But this MSME, this Company A is in need of cash. This company needs its payment right now because see, the MSMEs are the small companies. Okay, they are not that liquid. They want cash on an immediate basis so that they can fulfill their requirements. They need to pay salaries to their employees. They need to buy the machines and etc. Okay, so in this case, what this MSME will do it will approach this trade platform. Okay, now this MSME will say that I have an invoice, I have a proof that I have sold 100 shares to the CPSC and I also have a proof that the CPSC has to pay me 10 lakh rupees. So what you can do is just give me certain amount of my payment. Probably you can give me 9.2 lakh rupees. Okay. And what you can do is this trade will collect this money from this CPSC after 90 days. It is not the headache of this particular MSME right now. The trade will collect that money itself from this CPSC. Okay. And this trade will pay 9.2 lakh rupees to this MSME. And the rest of the amount, this trade platform will keep it as their fee. So that's how this trade will work. So that the working capital requirements of MSME can be fulfilled. Now, very important information. Trade platform is the RBI regulated electronic platform. Whatever rules and regulation related to the trade, rules and regulation related to the trades platform will be made by the RBI. Now, this will help MSME to obtain funds against invoices and receivables due from buyers. Next provision is related to time limits for the dispute resolution. First of all, we need to understand the difference between mediation and arbitration. See, in mediation, what happens is, if there is any conflict or any issue between the two parties will come together, they will sit together and they will try to reach to a conclusion. Now, this is an example of mediation. Here, only two parties are involved. Now, what happens in arbitration? Arbitration takes place when the mediation fails. If the two parties are not able to reach to a conclusion, then one arbitrator will come. Arbitrator is a third party. Arbitrator will be a neutral person and he will listen to both sides of the party. Okay, he will listen to both party A and party B, and then this arbitrator will provide a neutral judgment. Okay, this judgment is also known as award. Arbitrator will pass a award. Now let us understand what time limits they are saying. See, in mediation must be completed within the 90 days from the date of fixed for the first appearance. For example, if there is a conflict between a company, MSME company and a buyer, now they both can indulge into mediation, but this mediation should be completed within 90 days. And just in case if their mediation fails, they have to go to arbitration. Arbitration must commence within 30 days of the termination of mediation. Okay, if your mediation has been terminated, if it has failed, then within 30 days you have to approach to the arbitration. Then arbitration award. must be delivered within 90 days from the completion of pleadings. Okay, the arbitrator has to give you the judgment or award within 90 days. All right. Now, disputes relating to awards. Now, understand what it is trying to tell you. See, for example, if the arbitrator has given a judgment that this buyer has to give 5 lakh rupees to this MSME as a compensation, and buyer is not happy with the decision of the arbitrator, buyer will approach to the courts. Now what it says is a party challenging an award of the facilitation council must deposit 75% of the awarded amount. That means what? Before buyer approaching the court, buyer has to pay at least 75% of 5 lakh to this particular MSME. So the operations of MSME are not stopped. Okay. Now these are the provisions which we have to, which has been amended in the new bill. Now the next news is related to RBI to resume licensing for urban cooperative banks. Now in this news specifically, we have to talk about urban cooperative banks because they have been asked in your previous year questions. Okay. See, after more than 20 years, the Reserve Bank of India has decided to restart on-tap licensing of urban cooperative banks. What is on-tap licensing? Throughout any time, throughout the year, anyone, any eligible entity can apply to become urban cooperative banks. Okay, this is called your on-tap license. There is no application window. Now, what is application window? For example, when you fill a form, when you fill any examination form, there is an application window that you have to fill your form within 1st of August to 31st of August. This is the application window. But right now, there is no as such application window. If there is any entity, if it wants to become urban cooperative bank, then throughout the year, it can apply its license through on-tap licensing. Okay. See, now let us discuss what are urban cooperative banks. Urban cooperative banks are cooperative banks. Cooperative banks are those banks which works for the welfare of their own members. Here the members itself are what? Owners as well as the customers. Here the members of the cooperative banks are itself the owners and the customers. Okay. Now this is an example of your cooperative bank. Now urban cooperative bank mainly operates in the urban and semi-urban area. That means if in your exam, if the statement comes that the urban cooperative banks works in the rural area, then this will be an incorrect statement. Now, what is their primary objective? Their primary objective is to provide banking services to the small traders, MSME, self-employed individuals, okay, salaried employees and retail customers. Now, why were the new urban cooperative bank licenses stopped? Why RBI stopped providing urban cooperative banking license to the entities? What happened previously? See, between 1993 and 2001, RBI followed a liberal licensing policy. That means if any entity comes and asks RBI that I want to work as an urban cooperative bank, so RBI will give them the license. Okay, so RBI adopted a very liberal approach. However, many newly established urban cooperative banks faced weak corporate governance, poor financial management, and rising non-performing assets. I've explained you what are non-performing assets in my previous lecture, in the previous video, which is a part of Economy This Week series, right? And financial instability. Okay, because RBI has not made a very strict regulation or very strict norms. Anyone can come and function as an urban cooperative bank. So for a while, because these problems increased, RBI stopped issuing the new urban cooperative bank licenses in 2004 to prevent further risk to the banking system. Okay. Now, on-tap license I have explained you earlier as well. It means that eligible institutions can apply for a banking license at any time throughout the year. There is no fixed application window. The RBI will examine your applications. Okay, as soon as your application reach to the RBI will examine your applications and whenever they are received. Okay. Now let us talk about the regulations or the criteria which RBI has made. If you want to work as an urban cooperative bank, then these are the conditions you need to fulfill. First of all, you should have a 10 years of experience. Only those credit cooperative societies that have been functioning successfully at least 10 years can apply for the banking license. So this is the first criteria. Now the second criteria is what? Capital requirement. Any applicant who wants to function or any entity who wants to function as an urban cooperative bank should have the minimum deposit base of 10,000 crore rupees. This is your deposit base which you should have if you want to function as a UCB. And the minimum net worth should be around 300 crore. What is net worth? Assets minus liability. This is your net worth. Your net worth should be 300 crore rupees. These figures must be supported by audited financial statements. The next condition is financial health. RBI will make sure that your financial health is also good if you want to work as a UCB. So it says that your capital to risk weighted asset ratio should be 12%. Now, what is capital to risk weighted asset ratio? If we talk about the formula, it is capital upon risk weighted assets into 100. This is the formula of capital to risk weighted assets ratio. Now, what are risk weighted assets? Let's just say that if a bank gives 100 rupees to a company which is a good financial record, it has a good financial track record, okay, and now in another case the banks are giving 50 rupees as a loan to company B which has a poor financial track record. Company B has been in loss for more than 5 years. Now, is the risk same in both the cases? The answer is no. Risk is more in this particular case. Now, this is a risk-weighted asset for this particular bank. Okay. Now, this particular ratio should be more than 12%. Minimum, it should be 12%. The more the capital risk-weighted asset ratio is, the better it is for the banks. Always remember that. Okay. Now, the next thing it says is the net non-performing asset should be 3%. The net non-performing asset should be 3%. Okay. Now, if we talk about who regulates the urban cooperative bank, now here is the interesting part. If we talk about urban cooperative banks, here two entities are involved. When it comes to managing their banking and financial aspects, such as licensing, capital adequacy, lending and financial stability, RBI regulates the urban cooperative banks. Okay. Right now also we have seen that RBI has made some regulation with regard to their licensing mechanism, that who can get the license of urban cooperative bank. So who made this regulation? RBI. RBI will make the regulation. And when it comes to handling their cooperative and administrative matters, then the registrar of cooperative society, that is RCS, will do the regulation. So two entities are involved in the regulation of urban cooperative banks. Now the last news is Fawwara UPI cross-border payment corridor. Recently, Maldives Monetary Authority has launched a Fawwara UPI cross-border payment corridor. Let us see what it says. See, first of all, what is Fawwara? Fawwara is a Maldives instant payment system. Okay, it's a Maldives payment system. Now, it has now been integrated with India's UPI. So now Fawwara has been integrated with India's UPI. Now, let us try to understand this with the help of example. For example, Rahul is working in Maldives. He is earning in Maldives and he wants to send some money to his father who lives in Punjab. His father uses UPI. So what Rahul can do is, since Fawwara and UPI has been integrated now, so Rahul will do the transaction from this particular payment system, that is Fawwara. Okay, he will make the transfer in Maldivian rupiah, but his father will receive that amount in rupees through UPI. That's how the Fawwara and the UPI has been connected. See, individuals and Maldives can transfer money to UPI-enabled bank accounts in India through mobile banking applications. Now, the initial participating Maldivian banks are Banks of Maldives and Maldives Islamic Bank. Initially, the corridor supports person-to-person transfer. Only P2P transfer has been, like the P2P transfer is supported right now. That means person-to-person transfer. Business cannot use this facility. For example, if there is a business, if there is a company in Maldives and then there is another company which is in India, they cannot use this particular facility because it is available only for the P2P transactions, including permitted family remittance or gift-related remittance. Merchant payment and additional services are expected to be expanded in subsequent phases. It is expected that merchant payments will be made in the upcoming years. Okay. Now, why it is important for India? Expansion of India's digital public infrastructure. Our UPI is being integrated with the banking system of the other countries. Now, UPI is increasingly being integrated with payment system of other countries, strengthening India's digital finance footprint. India's digital finance footprint is being strengthened. Okay. Next is faster and cheaper cross-border payment. Now we can also make cross-border payment. It is faster and it is also a cheaper. Real-time payment linkage can make remittance faster and more convenient. Then India Maldives Economic Cooperation. If in your mains examination, if the question comes, if they are asking you to discuss about the India and Maldives relation, you can mention these points. You can talk about the UPI and Fawwara linkage. Okay, you will get some extra marks. Now let us also discuss UPI. This is the last slide which we have to discuss. See, the UPI is an instant real-time digital payment system developed by the NPCI. Very important. UPI has been developed by NPCI. It is an interoperable platform. Okay, in UPI, different banks can make the transactions. For example, if there is a person who holds SBI account and the other person is having a PNB account, they both can make the transactions. Okay, allow user to link multiple bank accounts to a single UPI application. Real-time payments can be made, enables instant P2P and P2M, yani ki person or merchant payments. Alright. Next, we have cashless and contactless. It facilitates digital payments through mobile phone, QR codes, UPI, IDs, etc. That means there is no cash used here. 24/7 availability is there. Now, UPI was launched in 2016. This is an important fact. You can remember this. Okay. Now, we also need to know that in how many countries the UPI is working. See, the UPI is currently active and usable for the payments across Bhutan, Nepal, Singapore, UAE, France, Mauritius, Sri Lanka, Qatar, and Oman. Okay. Now, let us solve some practice questions. Which of the following correctly describes the repo rate? Option A, rate at which RBI absorbs the overnight liquidity from the banks. B, rate at which RBI provides overnight liquidity to banks against eligible collateral. C, rate at which banks lend to the government. Option D, rate at which banks lend to each other without collateral. Choose the correct option. Answer the correct option in your comment box. Okay. Question 2. With reference to the MSME Development Bill, consider the following statement. First statement. It seeks to amend the MSME Act 2006. Second, it introduced greater flexibility in MSME classification. Third, it seeks to streamline the dispute resolution. Fourth, it completely abolishes the monetary penalties for MSME related violation. Choose the correct statement. Option A 1 and 2, option B 1, 2 and 3, option C 2, 3 and 4, option D 1, 2, 3, 4. Write down your answers in the comment section, and I hope you like today's lecture. Have a good day ahead.
For more informative content, like, share and subscribe, and do not forget to press the bell icon to get the notifications.